Hello, everybody. It's Kirsten from Entflow. I just wanted to give you a product overview and just a kind of run through of all the features that we have for HubSpot workflows. So the first thing you'll see when opening your dashboard is just a few shortcuts to all of our different tools. You'll see a little workflow cluster. So it shows us how many contact workflows we have, how many company, and of course, if you have different objects other than contact, company, deal, and ticket, it'll show up too, and just which ones are cross-enrolling or cross-writing. And of course, we can then go ahead and open up our map from here, which I'll do in a second. We also have some notable cleanup items, the workflows with the worst scores, recent changes, so either trigger changes, action changes, new workflows that were created, those will all show up here. Our portal health, of course, every time you sync and you fix issues, you'll get a little graph showing how your workflow health has changed, how many workflows you have and how many are live, conflicts, dependencies, what your workflows actually do. So you'll see 55% of our test portal set property values. We've got which properties are being written to and read the most, and then just our health versus conflict graph. What one can do from here is also add a second portal. Of course, we don't charge for free portals, so you can have 20 free portals if you really wanted to. We also don't charge per user, so you can invite as many team members as you want. Now, let's quickly go on to our main feature. We'll open up our map. The first thing you'll see are all of these different nodes. Now, every single one of these nodes represent a workflow in HubSpot, and they're color-coded, of course. So contacts blue, we can use this legend to see, and every custom object you use will also be assigned a unique color. I can click into these nodes, and what it'll then show me is the workflow detail. So it'll show me the enrollment trigger, what action it then executes, are there any conflicts? You can make comments in here for your team. You can have a look at the workflow changes that have happened in the last while, and then also its health, or I can run a deep analysis and see if it's going to give me any additional issues that I might want to fix. We then also, I'll open that again in a second, can move around these nodes freely. So I can put them in any order I want, how I feel I want to organize them, I can. Or I can click into our timeline, arrange these by object type, which will put contacts first, companies, then deal, then ticket. Of course, your custom objects will then come after that. Or I can arrange them by timeline, and I'll show you that a little bit later. We then also have our map tools, so I can add in little sections, or I can add in little blocks. Let's add 2 of those, and I can have those be connected to one another by a connector. We can change the direction of that connector. We can make it dotted, change the styles. We can even animate it if we wanted to. Zoom in a bit there. And we can make these different colors or change the text size and so on. That'll be really nice for if you create your documentation in Entflow. You can have a nice little timeline at the top here that shows you which stages you're looking at or what part of your sales process is being executed by certain workflows. What we can also do is you'll see that we've got these little connections, and this shows us that this workflow is setting lifecycle stage, this one's reading lifecycle stage, and this one is using lifecycle stage within its branches. So you'll see we've got a branch 2 paths, and it uses the enrollment trigger lifecycle stage. That's why those are connected. An easy way to find out about that too is on the left-hand side, we've got all of our filters. So here we can filter by status, are they active or not? Our object type, of course, if you've got more objects, those will pull in on the left-hand side. Our action type, so what are the workflows doing? Show me only workflows that send emails, for example. We can go ahead, filter those. It shows us the ones that are sending emails. Then we can go further, show me the users that are in workflows. So if someone is being referenced by name in a trigger, action, branch, it'll show me which user that is. So if you're ever offboarding someone, then or just want to make sure that your workflows don't use people and rather use owner fields, that would be a good way to do it. We can filter by our lists, forms, dependencies, tags. Of course, for every workflow, we can go ahead and set tags. We can add more if we want. And here we finish this analysis, and now it gives us quite a few extra things that we can read through and make sure that the workflow is in fact healthy. Then we've also got our property impact. Now I can have a look at every single one of our properties that are being used in HubSpot by our workflow. Show me all of the workflows that use lifecycle stage. There's 5. Let me see all the workflows that use ticket status. Okay, it's those 4. Show me all the workflows that use deal stage, company name, record source. So any workflow that's ever present within any workflows, you can go ahead and have a look at which ones write to it and which ones read. So I can actually click into lifecycle stage and see, okay, here are the 4 workflows that set lifecycle stage, and here are the 2 workflows that read lifecycle stage. The next thing that we have is our workflows table. So this just shows me all of the workflows in our HubSpot. Are they active, not active? What's the score? What's their risk? How many actions do they have? When last were they updated? And of course, from here, we can open up the detail sidebar. So it'll also show us what the workflow does. We can open it in our map. So I'll click on that. It opens up the map, highlights the one we're looking at, and then also, of course, opens up the sidebar. And on the left-hand side here, we've got all of our pretty filters that we can use to make it easier to find workflows that do certain things. From every single one of our features, we can also open up a workflow in HubSpot. So on the right-hand side, that'll open up our HubSpot instance. On our map, if we click into a node, we can open up directly in HubSpot from here. And of course, in any other one of our tools, they also have their own nodes. Open on map, open details, and open in HubSpot. So on our analyst tool, this pretty much has a look at the health of our workflow. It gives us an average health. 9 of our workflows are healthy, 3 of them are at risk, and of course we can click into that and it'll show us the 3 that might be at risk. We can also then go in and open that up. It'll show us the issues that we have. So this enrolls when lifecycle stage is sales qualified lead, then sets the same property sales qualified lead. This workflow does nothing useful. So we can make sure that that is actually correct, and we'll see that the filter is lifecycle stage is NF SQL, and then in the actions, it sets lifecycle stage to SQL again. So of course, that is an obvious issue. It'll then tell us in the optimizations that we can remove this workflow entirely as it serves no purpose. And this will be true for every single one of our workflows, gives us a nice little impact. We can also, of course, run an AI analysis, and it gives us some more information. Once the AI analysis is run, you'll notice that we get a little AI badge, so you know that this one's already been run through the AI. This one, for example, has not. For all of the ones that have, it also gives us a nice little workflow summary of what the workflow does. We, of course, also have our filters on the left-hand side, which just make it a bit easier when we have a portal with 400, 500 workflows. We then have our audit tool. So the audit takes a good look at the entire workflow infrastructure within your HubSpot. And once you run an audit, you'll see we've got a bunch here. We can see that it gives us a very nice little summary. Executive summary, what happens in the HubSpot portal? What's the risk assessment? What does the architecture look like? The conflict analysis, and then some customized recommendations. It also then gives us workflow findings. So it pops out all of the workflows that we selected when running the audit, and it gives us the problems that it has found. We then have, we can of course also export this to a PDF or to a docx. Then one of our most impressive features is the timeline. So the timeline takes all of the workflows and puts them into the order in which they run. So in this HubSpot instance, which is just our test development, it has found workflows that do lead capture, qualification, sales handoff, nurture, pipeline management, opportunity, ticket pipeline, and internal ops. It then goes ahead and puts these into order. So the order in which they trigger. If you click into these, it will also tell you the logic it's used to put it in that order. So this one is a lead capture workflow because it triggers on form submission. But it is important to know that the timeline is smart enough to know that if someone fills in a form, but that workflow also uses a deal property, that it won't be a lead capture workflow, because of course it's using a deal object, so it's a little bit later in the funnel. We can also, of course, on the sidebar, scroll through all of our different stages. We can filter by contact company deal. We can also do that up here. And the nicest thing about this is I can go back to my map, click on the timeline here, and then arrange the nodes in the order that they fire in. And you'll see it does a very cool little animation. And now we know, okay, here's our lead capture, our qualification. And this is where our shapes and sections come in pretty handy, because now I can go ahead and say, okay, this is lead capture. And we can then give every section a color if we wanted and tag everything appropriately. Let's say, for example, these four are actually our lead capture. Just an example. We can go ahead and put that section over there, or use some of our other shapes. We can also, of course, in the map, turn on snap. So right now, if I select a node, I can move this around freely without any snapping happening, or I can put on snap and it'll try and snap to the dots on the actual map. Cool. The next thing we have is our compare tool. This just allows us to take two different workflows, put them next to one another, and check, are they related or are they dependent on one another? These are because they both use lifecycle stage. This is the one writes contact lifecycle stage to a contact, and the other one uses lifecycle stage in a trigger. We can also then have a look at what would happen if we deactivate these. Then the next thing we have is our cleanup tool. This one we've put a lot of work into, but this one will pretty much give us complete recommendations for every single one of our workflows that have errors. So in our broken workflow, ironically named, it'll tell us we've got a redundant property right, and we can then go ahead, open this in HubSpot, fix the issue. Once you resync, of course, that issue will disappear, or you can click on resolve, in which case it also goes away, and then it only shows you the other ones that are left. Cool. The last feature that we have is our changelog. This is just every single time you sync your portal, it'll show you workflows that have just been created, workflows whose enrollment have changed, or ones that status have been changed, which ones have been modified, renamed, and so you always have a good insight as to what has changed since your last sync with Entflow. You can also view the difference, so we can have a look at what the previous workflow did compared to what the new workflow does. And that is pretty much our changelog. Of course, from here we can also open up our sidebar, we can open up our map, or we can open it up in HubSpot. And that's Entflow. Hope you guys enjoy. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to email us at hello@entflow.app.